You're listening to Sarah Hagen Backstage, with interviews and insights from years inside the music industry. Join Sarah as she talks with masters of their crafts, finding out what makes them tick both inside and outside of the music business. This week, Sarah talks with Andreas Forero.
Welcome to Sarah Hagen Backstage. My guest today, Andreas Forero, is a celebrated Broadway drummer with hits such as In the Heights and Hamilton. And we will talk about that today. And we will also talk about his start in music, his incredible music education and how that shaped him, how he made it through the quarantine, and all of the great projects that he has been working on. So come with me as we catch up with Andreas Forero. Andres, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Oh my God, I'm so great. I'm so grateful to be here with you, and I'm excited to be a part of your rising star.
Oh, thank you.
So awesome.
I appreciate that. It's just great to have a chance to talk with you and catch up.
I know this is these podcasts and YouTube interviews and all these things that we're able to do to share with folks how we've gotten through the past year or so are so important, and it means a lot to me to be able to have a platform to speak. So thank you for creating that space.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, speaking of this past year, tell us how you've been and how you've gotten through it. I know it has not been easy for all of us, but I know you've had quite the year and a little bit of a battle too. So yeah, let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I always am careful in how I talk about my experience with COVID, because I'm hyper aware of so many people that have had it worse than me. But my family and I all got COVID somewhere in the end of the first week of March into the second week. And, it's difficult when you have kids to go through something like that, because you always blame yourself. And that's kind of what I struggled with the most, was thinking, oh my God, I did something to make my my kids sick. And I have 3 kids and they all got sick at different times, but my wife also got very sick, and that was pretty difficult for me, because I was sick as well, but she was far worse than I was. So I had to figure out a way to take care of her and take care of the kids. And in our house, I have a studio downstairs, which is where I am now. And so she was there downstairs while I was upstairs, and then the kids were in separate rooms. So there was a lot of running around, and that was quite a challenge, having been sick myself. But somehow, thank God, I was able to take care of them as best I could. I'm not much of a cook, so I had to figure out how to do all the incredible things that she does. And that was pretty humbling experience for me as well. But I think overall, the COVID brought us all closer together. And I'd been away for so much of my kids' younger part of their life when they were babies, that this was such a blessing for me. Each child was born in a different state to a different show that I was doing. So
wow,
this was much needed, and it was a great reset. I think that's a word that you're going to hear a lot from a lot of people, is that this was a reset for all of us to re-examine the things that were important or are important in our lives, and the things that just don't really matter. And I'm hopeful that it'll stick. You always worry that, oh my gosh, we go through these horrible things, life events, and eventually we go back to where we were before. I'm praying that for myself anyway, I'm really vigilant of not having that go back to the way it was, and not taking anything for granted, because you never know what's going to happen.
Absolutely. Yes, I agree with you. And I think that we're forever changed in a lot of ways, especially those of us in the music industry who had a lot of friends who were sick, a lot of we knew people who passed away. We
Yeah.
had friends whose family passed away, and it's I think we're forever changed in the way that you just said. We don't take anything for granted, and have a new perspective on what exactly is important and what we should spend our time on and who we should spend it with.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can say that for myself as well.
So true. And going into it, there's loose ends. There's going into something like that, all of a sudden you're leaving your office, which for me is the pit of the Richard Rodgers Theater. And I
Right.
just left it, and I was home, and there's all these loose ends that, I don't know what has gone on at the theater. Of course, there's people there, but I miss that. I spent a lot of time there, and you create a lot of memories, and my coworkers have become family, the band. I'm very close to all of them, and they're very important to me. And in fact, the members of the band were instrumental in helping care for us while we were very sick. And so I'm forever grateful to them for that. And so I miss work. I miss seeing their faces, and I miss playing music like everyone else. So.
Right. And it gave you a good look into how much people care about you, though.
Yes.
I mean, you wouldn't have realized probably that those people would do that for you, or it helps you understand how much people care, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And they're some of the most compassionate people that I've ever met in my life at that show. So I'm very grateful to them.
I love that. And we definitely will talk about the show and all the things that are happening now. And I just kind of want to first go a little bit back in time and talk about your start in music. When you started playing drums, and I know that you also play guitar. And so give us an idea about your musical journey, the start of it, and how it all came to be.
Sure. So my journey began really with listening to a Canadian pianist named Glenn Gould, who was one of the greatest interpreters of Bach's music. And I would sit and watch him play, and I was just enamored with him. I was very young, and in the house there was a old school organ, Yamaha organ, that that we could play, and there were guitars there. No one was a professional musician, but it was good to have instruments in the house. And I just remember really being taken by a well-tempered clavier performance that Glenn Gould gave with the Canadian orchestra, broadcast Canadian orchestra that usually aired, I think, every 2 to 3 weeks. And it was the prelude in C minor, and it's contrapuntal music. So both your hands are doing different things. And something about that really spoke to me. And from there, I just really got interested in all sorts of music, because my brothers and my sister were, listening. I have 3 older brothers and an older sister that were listening to different things. And so there was a lot of music playing in the house. And I was greatly captivated by the band Rush. And the first record that I ever owned was my brother's record, my older brother's record, which was Permanent Waves. And that's kind of heavy, as a kid, to get into that kind of music.
Yeah. How old were you?
Geez, I want to say I was probably 7 years old. I mean,
Wow.
not too long after it was released. And, it was challenging, but for some reason, I didn't feel and that's really due to their writing. When they play odd time signatures, you really don't feel the jaggedness of a 7 or a 6 or whatever,
Right.
So it just flowed for me. And to me, it was all about the melody. And I really was drawn to Geddy Lee's voice and Alex Lifeson's guitar playing, but really fell in love with Neil Peart's drumming. I didn't know what they were talking about. I had no idea. The lyrics were much more profound than I could understand at that point in my life. But the music spoke to me. So I went into this dark hole of studying Rush, and then bands like Boston. And then I got into Ozzy Osbourne. I mean, it just went you know, full on hair metal
Yes.
um, to pop, even into pop. You know, I fell in love with Billy Ocean and R&B. And that was the other thing. My brothers at the time were really listening, even before Rush. I really was listening to mainly R&B, soul music.
Hmm.
You know, a lot of funk, P-funk. So the roots are pretty varied, and then the guitar sort of came in to the picture next, and I wouldn't put the guitar down. I don't think I ever have until, you know, I couldn't really play anymore from a car accident. But that's really what brought me back to music, was the guitar. So
Hmm.
so yeah, the guitar really became a big thing. But then, you know, in Rochester where I grew up, there were a lot of guitar players at one point, then a lot of drummers, and at some small window there was a lack of drummers, if you can believe it. And so they were like, "Hey, listen, we need a drummer. So you're going to play drums." And I was like, "Okay, I guess I'm going to play drums." And you know, I had an interest in it, but definitely the guitar was my main focus. Just was in love with the guitar, and I got really into the drumming thing. And then soon after that, I fell in love with jazz music. And yeah, I mean, I never really had a drum set to practice on, so I just played on the floor. And, you know, bless
Wow.
my mom, God bless her, you know, she would sit and watch me play on the couch, the armrest of this old dingy brown couch that we had, and I'd put on the VHS of a Rush. Like, they had several live videos at that point. Now we're into my, you know, 12 or 13 years old. And I mean, she would just sit and listen to me, and I, you know, I just would love to play along with it. And obviously the lowest frequency was the floor or the bottom cushion, and then the highest was like sort of the corner where I could hit the whatever metal or wood was underneath.
Hmm.
So, and then from there it just grew and grew and grew, and I found a place to practice at school. So when I would get to school, I could practice there on the drum set that they had. And never really being able to take proper lessons because it was way too expensive for us. So
Right.
I'm really self-taught on all the instruments. And the drums, you know, I was able to take some lessons in college when I went to Manhattan School of Music, but for the most part, you know, I just figured it out on my own. So
That's amazing. Yeah, and it's so interesting too because I always associated you with jazz music, you know, and I that was just something that was in my head, and I didn't realize that you kind of grew up on like the Rush and the metal music, but
oh
I
yeah.
can see that too. And you know, similarly, I used to set up the pillows on the couch, like the couch pillows, and set them up like in a kit formation, and that's what I practiced on as well. And
That's
years
awesome.
later, right? Years
Yeah.
later, I spoke with Dennis Chambers, and he said, you know how I got my speed and, you know, kind of like got my chops up. I played on a pillow because it's so, you know,
Dead.
yeah,
There's
dead.
nothing
And
there.
exactly, you have to really like use your finger strength to pull the stick back. So,
Yeah.
um, you know, maybe that contributed to to where you went.
It's
Um,
possible. Yeah. I guess I should probably go back to doing that now.
just play on the pillows,
Yep,
right?
lie on the pillows, yeah.
I think that's why I got my first drum set. My parents were like, "Okay, the couch cushions, the stools at the counter, you know, it's like everything was a drum set
Yeah.
until I had a drum set."
You
So,
destroyed all of it until you got the drums. They're like, "Okay, we're
yeah,
getting you a drum set."
right. Right. There's a lesson out there for kids, right? If you want a drum set,
Play on your parents' best table and you'll
right.
get a drum set.
Oh, that's so great though. I love like that your older siblings and their kind of diverse music choices were really a benefit to you because you got a whole range of styles to listen to and to get into. So that's
Yeah,
super important.
that would serve me greatly later in my life. And I think the biggest thing was that it opened my mind. You know, I played in a polka band when I was in Rochester. You know, I played
Wow.
in a big band with the Lions Club and the Rotary Club when I was just 13 years old. I was playing with these guys that were in their 60s and 70s, you know. So there wasn't a style of music that I didn't like because
Hmm.
I didn't come into it. I was very innocent in that sense. I didn't have any prejudice towards any music because I
Hmm.
just wanted to play, you know. And that really would serve me later in my life to be able to have the openness to listen to music, country music, folk music, classical music, Irish music, African
Mm.
music. All of it just became, and then the more I got into it, and the more I was able to understand the intellect behind the math and the music and all the business that went on with the percussion and stuff, then I really fell in love with percussion and drums, and
Mm.
then the guitar sort of sat in the corner.
Yeah.
So
Right. And isn't that interesting though too? Like when you're young, you don't know why you're drawn to what you're drawn to,
right.
but there's just an inherent like pull toward not even just a style of music, but maybe something that is drumming heavy or mathematically complicated, or and like you say with Rush does something amazing where you don't feel like it's complicated.
Right.
You try to play it and it's complicated, but
Right.
when you're listening to that music, it just feels good. It feels you can sing along to it, you can move along to it. You don't.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not.
I've heard people say, "Hey, you can't dance to Rush music." You can. You
You
can
can.
move to it. Yeah, it's I don't look particularly good moving or dancing to any music, but if you needed to, it's the way that they wrote it. It just moves and people can just groove to it, which is brilliant.
I
So
agree. That's so great.
that's a gift.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And speaking of the genres and how I mentioned how I think of jazz music when I think of you, I think that's because of the your history as you were the UN, was it the UN Jazz Ambassador? Is that correct?
I was one of many.
Mm.
So if you were lucky enough to be called to represent the U.S. through the United Nations, and it was a global peace offering that the United States did with different countries. And for instance, I performed in Russia, I performed in Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan,
Wow.
and went to Poland. I mean, I've been all over the world in that setting. And our main objective was really to bring peace and communication through music.
Mhm.
And there's sister cities. So Albany happened to have been a sister city to Tula, which is a tiny little city in Russia.
Wow.
And I can't say that the experience wasn't a little scary at
Mhm.
times, but it was probably one of the most gratifying things that I had done when I was younger, to be able to represent through music. That was a big deal for all of us that were blessed to do that. I think that platform has changed quite a bit since the climate has changed and become
Mhm.
more volatile. But yeah, it's a really wonderful thing to be a part of that. And I was really blessed to be able to be exposed to jazz mainly through my music teacher in high school, Ned Corman.
Mhm.
And Ned had a thing called the Commission Project, where he would commission someone like Paquito de Rivera or Max Roach or John Faddis, Jerry Mulligan, any of these incredible luminaries to come in, and he would commission a musician like at the Eastman School of Music to arrange either one of their pieces of music or something original for them. And then they would bring the band together. They would invite the guests for a week. Then we'd have a big concert at the end of the week. And that was really, I think, a turning point in my life, being exposed. When you have Ron Carter sitting next to you and
Mhm.
he turns to you and he says, "More hi-hat." I'm already playing so nervous. And when he signed a picture of him, it says, to Andres, "More hi-hat."
I love
who,
it.
who gets that? Those are those moments in your life where, thank God for my teacher and for all that he represented for all of us, because he opened so many doors for me. And later on in my life, I would go on to teach special education and music in White Plains. And if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have had any success in that, because he really, I remembered how he taught us and how he brought in paintings of his wife to sort of make examples of where there were dynamics and how we could express music through dynamics. And there was different brush strokes in her art that would, correlate to that. And it was kind of an abstract thing, but really worked for me because I'm very visual.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the kids that are learning are visual. So it was a great experience. But he really brought the jazz into my life. And, you know, I grew up in a city where Steve Gadd, Cab Calloway, Chuck Mangione, Gab Mangione came from, you know, so
Right.
there's roots there.
Yeah. What is it about Rochester? I feel like it's just a hub of like, you know, unbelievable musicians, you know.
Yeah,
The more,
I think there's a lot of cities that are like that, you know, but
yeah,
Rochester, because of you know, I always turn to Steve Gadd
right.
because you know he just means so much to me and to so many people. But I got to play with him a duet when I was in, I believe I was in 8th grade. I don't quite remember, but the first time I performed with him was a duet at our school, and again set up by Ned Corman. And there was another drummer, Bill Freeberg, who was younger than I was, and you know they got to do a duet together. And these are things that are life changing, you know. So Steve really sort of sets the standard for me as to, you know, what Rochester means musically. And of course,
Mhm.
Chuck Mangione, you know, he's a treasure for all of us that are from there. So
Absolutely. And how incredible that your teacher really was able to do those things. And, you know, you talked about the painting,
yeah,
connect with students on their level. You know,
yeah,
you were a visual learner, and it's just amazing that he had that that vision to be able to connect with you and your creativity through a visual medium. That's just amazing.
yeah. But teachers are so underappreciated, and you know, to me, it's always been um, something that's bothered me. They work so hard, and we spend, you know, as a kid, we spend more time with our teachers than we do with our family.
Right.
And the way that they're shaped and the things that they end up doing, whether it's music, art, or you know, writing or whatever, science, history, it's due to the teacher's ability to reach that student. You know, I would
Mhm.
imagine if you have a student, if you know you have a class of 30 students, if you can reach one or two of them, you've made a miracle. Like that's one of those things that is life changing for the teacher, but of course
Yes.
for the student as well. So
That's so true. And to see, I'm sure, you know, for him to see you go on and teach, like you said, and then, you know, become such a performer. It's just that is like the ultimate goal of a teacher, right? Just that success. That's
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, he
Um,
messaged me today, and he sent me an email with the marquee of the Little Theater in Rochester that had on the marquee, it said "In the Heights," and he said his email was, you know, I'm sure you're very busy with all the stuff that's going on, but I thought you might want to see a picture of your hometown theater in the marquee, and it just was so touching to me to receive that.
that's
Um,
incredible. What a
yeah,
full circle moment there.
totally,
That's just amazing.
totally, yeah,
That's amazing. And you know, the talking about the UN ambassador, it makes me think about how probably traveling at that point in your life and seeing how music connects across, you know, it connects people globally.
yeah,
That had to have been life changing for you as well.
yeah. It was. Anytime you get on a plane and you're going anywhere that's more than 4 hours away as
Hmm.
a child, you know, is very exciting. So just the fact that, oh my God, I'm in college, but I'm getting on a plane and I'm leaving and I'm going to play music.
Hmm.
You know, it was when we went to Russia. I had a band in Russia. Sorry, at the Manhattan School of Music that performed all over Russia, and it was with Stefan Harris and Luis Perdomo and Hans Glavishnig,
Hmm.
and you know, John Snyder, and we were able to perform in all of these very poor um, places in Russia. But I'll never forget one of them. There was on stage. It was like a turntable, kind of like what we have at Hamilton. I don't
Hmm.
know why they had it there, but my drums were set up half on and half off. And during our performance, in the makeshift PA system they had, you could hear a plane, the pilots talking for landing a plane, and then all of a sudden the thing started turning.
Oh,
And half of the drums were turning with it, and I just stayed because I was off of it. And
oh my
so these are
goodness.
the things that happen, you know, when you're when you travel. But great memories. We were able to touch a lot of people's lives, and of course, we came back completely changed
Right.
from it. So yeah, it's a great thing. I don't know how that if that exists anymore, given the political structure of things now and the
Right.
dangers that come with it. But me and many other musicians were blessed to be able to be a part of that.
Absolutely. And it is incredible how music unites. It's like
Yeah,
across countries, across genres and ethnicities. And it's like nothing else, I don't think, that brings people together.
yep,
And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what language you speak. You can feel it, you can understand it. And,
absolutely.
you've probably had this experience of traveling to other countries and hearing different American music and just kind of being like, oh my gosh, okay, this is here. I personally remember being in Paris. This really sticks out to me, and hearing Elvis, like a lot of
Wow.
Elvis music,
Oh my
and
gosh.
thinking like, okay, this is a thing.
Yeah.
But it
Yeah.
always amazes me.
I think that the music that we get to hear reaches, other countries, or at least it used to reach them a lot slower. Our
Hmm.
bass player at Hamilton is Richard Hammond, and he's one of my favorite people and favorite musicians that I've ever had the chance to work with. But he came from a small little city in where the hell is he from now? Not from Australia, but anyway, so he's New Zealand. So
Hmm.
there's a tiny little place that he comes from, and he told me that a lot of the music came to him very late, and up to that point, he was like playing the Beatles, and that was a lot for them because uh, there was such a catalog of that, but not a lot of other stuff. So
Hmm.
other bands sort of the music migrated to them a lot later. And then there were bands that he just never heard of, which was incredible until he got to the States. So
Yeah.
it's incredible. Like I can imagine the Elvis thing in Paris just being,
Right.
you're sitting there and you hear Elvis, that's pretty exciting.
And I think that, like, now that everything's online and accessible in most places, maybe it reaches people quicker, and also maybe the United States is getting more influence from outside as well, not
Yeah.
just not just from England, but from other countries. I feel like the K-pop movement, kids listening to Korean pop music.
Huge.
Amazing. That's big right now. So I love that. It's like
I do
I
too.
just love that there's culture that's coming back and forth, and new genres for kids to experience nowadays.
Totally. I think the more, like, going back to what we said, the more music that you can be exposed to, the greater chance you'll have to work. I believe that's
Mhm.
helped me a great deal with studio work, is being familiar with other styles of music. So
Absolutely. And speaking of work, you have this incredible body of work
mm,
behind you, and it's I feel like there's so much that we could talk about there, but let's kind of delve into the Broadway shows, because you have been involved in really like some of my absolute favorite shows ever.
thank you.
And we can talk about In the Heights for sure, and that the film has been released
Yeah.
just recently, right?
Yes. Just in the past week.
And I can't wait to see it. I've not seen it yet, but I will get there.
Yeah, I've seen it. I think I've seen it now 4 times, and it's it was a pretty life-changing experience. The last one was the most significant with my kids and my wife there because, you know, everything I do is for them. And that
Mhm.
show has been a part of me since before them. And it's seen me through some pretty difficult life chapters. I don't know that there's another musical setting that has affected me more than being a part of that show. Things that have happened to me, you know, 3 different marriages, uh, losing a child, losing my left ear, and then almost losing my life in a car accident. So there's a lot there. There's quite a lot, and it's such an emotional journey for me. So having seen the movie and heard myself playing, it's incredible. And then to see the kids react to it, my kids react to it was just great.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
I can imagine you watching that and hearing the music and it bringing back all of those experiences to you. It has to
Yeah.
be emotional.
Super, super
Yeah.
emotional. Yeah. A lot of gratitude.
And
Yeah.
what do the kids think? Do they, what do they think about the movie and the music?
Uh, I, they loved it. I mean, they sat quietly, and my daughter's 6 and
Mhm.
my other son's 8 and my oldest son is 11. So they were so well behaved, and I could tell that they were captivated by it. And it meant so much to me just to see them look back at me, when certain moments where they heard the drums or
Mhm.
something that moved them in the story. So yeah, it was a great experience to be with them. But um, like I said, the show has really taken me down all these windy roads. So I've been with it for
Absolutely.
almost 20 years. So
That yeah, and that is pretty incredible, we've talked in the past about how music whenever something is happening in life that's not easy to deal with, music is always there.
yeah.
Music is there to save us in a way, and, would you say that, In the Heights is really kind of like that music for you through that journey?
Um, yeah, definitely. I feel the story. I feel the characters. But when I started with the show in 2002, it was a different show, and my role was playing percussion, drum set, and a bucket, and the
Mhm.
storyline was completely different. And we were shopping it around to producers and whatnot, and you do a lot of these readings and workshops, and it was essentially uh, that in the beginning. And then after that passed, was in a car accident that took me out for some time. And fast forward to when it went to off Broadway, I got a phone call, and at that point I had sort of returned to being kind of normal and being able to
Mhm.
move around on my own. And they said, "Listen, we'd like for you to audition for the off Broadway thing." And I was very, very scared to do that because I didn't know. I mean, I was taping the sticks to my hands because I had no muscle memory. So I
Mhm.
was very nervous and talking to my doctor, and he's like, "Just do it. If you want to do it, you should do it." And so I went and auditioned, and it seemed to me like they had already picked someone, for the drum chair, but they were nice enough to give me the chance just because of the association with Lynn before.
Mhm.
But I did a good audition with the circumstances, given that I really was paranoid that I was going to drop the sticks, but I ended up not taping them, and I just played normally, and thank God I didn't drop the sticks at all during the
Mhm.
audition. But the way they do it is that they send you 3 tunes for you to work, and then there on the spot they give you one to sight read, and then they give you another one to play with the electronics. And I had never played with electronics at that point,
Oh,
never.
wow.
So yeah, I was freaked out, and so they're like, well, this one's going to be with the electronic pads. They're like, you've worked with them before, right? And I was like, oh man, what do I do? Do I say yes or no? And so I said yes. I've worked on them. I'm like, sorry, that's not really true, but um, and thankfully it was just utilizing 2 of the pads and 2 of the sounds, and I got through it. And I didn't really care at that point if I got the gig or not, just because for me the opportunity to just be uh, in front of someone else after what I had been through with this car accident, that was enough for me. And if I got through the audition, I was like, wow, that's kind of a victory in itself. Um,
Yes.
so I got a phone call from my dear friend Alex Lackamore, who was the musical director, and he said, "Hey, listen, we're not really sure. I think we have someone, but you did a great audition, and we'll be in touch with you." And I was like, "Oh, this is great. Thank you." And just hearing that was a victory. Like I said, I was so grateful. And then maybe 10 minutes later, he called and was like, "So we want you to play drums for the show." And I just freaked out. I couldn't believe it, that I was, that I had a job. It was, and
Yes.
and one like this, like I created the drum set. I created that drum set, and I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew that I was going to need all these different sounds based on, you know, the music that they had sent. And so I had to create this giant footprint of a drum kit. And it was sort of like a private little fantasy dream come true, because I've always loved Neil Peart. And I don't think I had as many electronic drums, but I definitely had as many acoustic drums as he did in his setup. So it
I love
started
that.
all the way to the left and just went all the way around. And yeah, so that was sort of the way that things got started with that show. And after we did the off-Broadway run, which was very successful at 37 Arts in New York, we had a 6-month hiatus, and then, you know, they moved us to Broadway at the Richard Rodgers Theater, which is ironically where I am now with Hamilton.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's been quite a journey. And in between that time, so many things happened to me, you know, while we were in transition or while we were off Broadway, that it really left, you know, left an imprint on me and on my life. So it's the most impactful musical experience I've ever had in my life, my career so far.
That is amazing. And let's just acknowledge too, you know, how far you came from that accident. And I remember you telling me about the accident, you know, shortly after we met and became great friends. And you shared with me that experience, and it just sounded really scary. And it's such a miracle that you made it back from that and to become, you know, the player that you have become.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You know, I lost a lot. I lost a lot, but gained more, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
You know, before the accident, I was really technical, and I had a lot more chops then than I do now. And I was a much stronger drummer. You know, I could do so much more with independence and all that stuff. But the one thing that is important for me now, which wasn't as important then because I just really wasn't aware of it, was just the simplicity of playing for the music, playing for the song.
Mm-hmm.
And melody just became everything. And I knew what my limitations were. I know them, you know, I see lots of videos. There's so many wonderful drummers that are putting out content, you know, and one of my hurdles and resolutions always is to put out more content and be more visible. It's hard for me to do that when there's already so much stuff. Who needs one more guy doing this or doing that? You know, there's just so much great stuff out there. But yeah, I've simplified, and I've focused so much more on melody and the harmonic part of music,
Mm-hmm.
which changed. And I already came from a place where, you know, harmony and melody were the most important thing for me, because I played instruments that, you know, like guitar and piano and bass. So I have a deep appreciation for it, but now it's so much on a different level, just because my limitations, I know what they are, and it's okay with me, you know.
Right.
Before I was like, oh my God, I can't do what this guy does. I suck, you know. But
Yes.
now I still sort of feel like I suck, but at least I found my little, I found what I can do as well as I can do it. And my objective has always been to make it feel good, whatever it is that I do, and to make other folks feel relaxed when you're
Mm-hmm.
playing with a click, and just to let them know, hey, I got this. No matter what, I'm gonna support everyone, because that's what we do. We're supposed to be supportive, and I think I focused mainly on that more than I do. But there are moments when we can, you know, have fun
Let
and
loose a
do.
little bit. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, there
Yeah. Well, first of all, you do not suck. So let's just put that out there.
are. Thank you. Well,
And you know, I think it's really important what you're saying. And you know, you shouldn't be hesitant to put content out there, because that's a really important lesson to learn about letting go of the, you know, sometimes the need or the desire to go a little bit more crazy with it, and just kind of focus on like what the music needs,
yeah,
what, you know, what really fits in there. And
yeah.
you do that so well.
Thank
So
you.
I think you should put more content out personally, but
Thank you. Well, you know, my manager and my drum tech are always pushing me to do that stuff. And
right.
I have a lot of drummers that I admire so much that do put out content so effortlessly, and when they're putting it out, it's every video is meaningful, and to
Right.
me, every one of them is a lesson. So I feel like, well, I really did take something from this. So maybe there is something
There's something there.
maybe
Yeah.
there's something that we can do that will inspire someone, or at least I'll inspire myself to get better or whatever. But um, it's definitely a humbling experience, when you're in the studio to go
Mhm.
back and hear yourself play. Or videos are just awful for me I can't stand to watch myself play. I can't stand to listen to when I play, So those are things that I'm working on to improve a little bit. And I think, we'll start putting some things out this year.
Yeah, yeah, and we're always our own worst critics. It does,
Yeah,
no matter what. That will always be the case.
that's true.
But I'm inspired by you, and I
Thank
know
you.
that so many others are. So
Thank you very much.
anything you put out will be well received.
I appreciate that. Well,
Absolutely. And let's talk a little bit about Hamilton too, because Broadway is opening back up in just a few months, and it's
I know.
so exciting.
It's exciting and scary at the same time, because it's like, oh my God, there's 50 what songs that I have to relearn again and get ready to
Yeah.
play, 3 hour show. No, I'm grateful. September 14th is our big return date, and that's going to be our first show back. So
It's amazing.
it's really, really exciting. Yeah.
And Hamilton is it's such a huge, huge show. I remember talking to you about it with the just the popularity of it, and it was sold out, always sold out, and it was like the hottest ticket that everybody wanted, tickets to Hamilton. And I finally saw it on Disney Plus, and have not been to the show, which I will get there, but
You have to come. We'll,
oh
we'll
my
figure that
gosh.
out. We'll figure it out once we get back to, you know, can you imagine when the show just closes and you have like months and months, maybe even a year of tickets pre-sold, how
Yeah.
they have to deal with that. So once we get past
Oh
all of
yeah.
that, you're going to be my guest at the show for sure. You have to
Well,
come and sit with me and then sit in the audience. That's usually the funnest way to do it.
I appreciate that so much. And I can only imagine what it's going to take to get everything back on track with all the ticket holders and all of that. But, it will be just incredible. I mean, I can't even think about it because I'll get emotional about it. But just being together with other people, enjoying
Yeah.
music,
Yeah.
watching, something amazing like that. Just the Disney Plus version that I got to see was just amazing. And telling history, telling a story in
Yeah.
that way, in the way that it is told through the
Oh, yeah.
music, it's just amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, they did an incredible job. Lynn is brilliant. Alex Lacamoire, brilliant. And Andy Blankenbuehler, the lighting folks. I mean, everyone just sort of they were all at the right place at the right time. And when they get together, they create. And Lynn is he's very faithful to the people that he's worked with. And so is
Mhm.
Alex. And so they brought back basically the original team from In the Heights to do this,
Mhm.
and included the theater that we did, which shows a lot and says a lot about their character. Um,
Yes.
so yeah, it's been a crazy ride, and I think that the next year is going to be equally as crazy, because it's almost like, oh my God, we're debuting again.
Yes.
Who gets that? You
I
never get
know.
that chance. Oh shoot, we're starting over again. Um, so yeah, it's very exciting, and a little bit nerve-wracking, like I said, because there's a lot of responsibility and bringing back the thunder that was when you
Mm.
left. And by the time we left, the show had sort of continued to evolve. The shows, I always tell folks that the shows are written, and by your second year, you've got pretty much everything in place, but it finishes evolving when it's ready, or when there's nowhere else for it to go. But
Mhm.
it will continue to evolve throughout. And I believe that we're going to go through that again, just because we've all been through so much and been away for so long. So
Absolutely. Yes. And I think about the fact that, there are multiple actors who play each part and who have played each part, and how that it must be really like you're saying, it's always evolving, because you always have new people and kind of personalities that are added into the mix and have their own take on that character. So
yeah, for sure. And
that's pretty cool.
You know, it's exciting to think that we're going to get a new wave of, you know, younger audience as well, because it's been a year, you know, so some people that weren't old enough to see it when we were running will be able to come see it now. So it's exciting.
That's so true. Sure. And I'm sure a lot of people who saw it on, you know, at home during the quarantine, like I did, are going to just want to get there and see it, you know, live as well.
Totally.
And I know I mentioned this to you before, but I would be so happy if Lin just told all the stories in history through, you know, in theater, because it's just so fantastic to learn about, you know, the history that way, and pieces that you didn't hear about in school when you're just learning dates and names and places and trying to memorize all that stuff. It kind of puts a different spin on it, especially for people who are visual learners.
Me.
Right? Exactly. One of the things too about Hamilton that always strikes me is the celebrity aspect to it. So, you know, so many people, not just, you know, not just us, like, you know, regular people, but the celebrities that go and see the show and that want to see the show. And I remember seeing a picture of you with Paul McCartney, right?
Oh my God.
One of the shows, and you must have met, I mean, just like everybody at this point.
I've met a lot of people. That one in particular was really, really spectacular. And I'm so grateful to Aaron, our one of our violinists, who had the frame of mind to actually take that picture. Otherwise, it would have, you know, never happened. But boy, he was so enthusiastic about the drums and the drumming and the music as a whole, and the show, of course. But he was so keen on meeting the band, you know, that he requested for all of us to be able to go, because it was a long line of people that wanted to meet him.
Wow.
And he was just so gracious, you know. Like, when I tell people that, you know, a lot of times when these celebrities come, they treat us like celebrities, and for them it's like everything switches, you know. I'll never get used to that, but it's a great thing to know that, you know, the people that you admire so much, or that you see and you wonder what they're like, they're just normal, wonderful people. Jim Carrey was another one. Will Smith, Oprah Winfrey, Queen Latifah, such beautiful people, just, you know, humble and kind. So yeah, it's been great meeting all these folks, and after a while, it stopped being nerve-wracking, you know.
Sure.
They're just there to say hi, you know. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and they're there to see you and see you perform, which is pretty amazing. And I don't know if you can you see the audience from where you are?
No.
Or oh, that's probably good, because I think that would be nerve-wracking if you could and you looked out and saw like Paul McCartney in the audience or something.
I can hear them, and I can always hear the MD saying, you know, who's going to be in the audience, or, you know, they might give us a heads up, which can be good or can not be good depending on who's there. But yeah, it's always nice afterwards, you know, where they invite us. They'll say, hey, you know, this person's on stage or in the back room, and they want to meet the band and the cast and all that. And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. You know, Prince was there, I think maybe a week before he passed away. He had his own. Wow. He brought his family, and the family sat in the audience, and he wanted his own balcony. And so sadly, I was not there for that performance. I subbed out. But he invited everyone afterwards to a private after party where he was DJing. And so he, you know, some people want to meet in that setting. Other people want to meet away from that setting. So,
sure.
But either way, it's just great to know that they came to the show and enjoyed it. So
absolutely. That's so great. And I can picture Prince like partying away into the evening, you know, DJing a set. Like
yeah, he talk about huge influence on my life. He's definitely, you know, huge for me. Him and Stevie Wonder were probably, I would say, and, you know, someone like Dave Grohl is someone that I admire greatly. And I got to spend time with Dave at the show, and he sat down at my drums and played. And
that's so great.
Yeah, very cool.
That's so great. And, you know, it's interesting too, because sometimes we forget that these people are also fans of the music, you know, and fans of music in general. And I think of Dave as someone like that. Like he's a music fan too. At the core, he's a
Yes.
fan of music and drumming and other drummers.
Absolutely. And listen, he's like, you know, for me, he's the ideal because he plays guitar and he plays drums, but he plays piano and plays bass. He's one of those guys that does it all, you know. And he was so nice and so sincere and the kind of person that you would never, you know, you would never have an issue with on any level. He's just such a calm, generous, compassionate person. So that was a highlight for me, you know, one that I'll never forget. And of course, seeing him play was great. You know, Steve Gadd came and he played the drums. I usually try to get them, if it seems like it's okay, I'll try to get them to play a little. And I've created a little video thing of all the drummers that have been there to play. So I'll have to share that with you.
Super cool. Yes, I would love to see that. That's really amazing. And you know, what a full circle experience to have Steve there sitting at your drums, you know, after growing up and being from the same place and, you know, looking up to him. That's just so incredible.
Yeah, it's been incredible. I had the blessing of having Steve Smith and his wife Diane sit in the pit with me for one of the shows, and Steve has become, you know, just a huge part of my life, and we're very good friends. And he's someone that I admire. I love him and Diane dearly.
Oh,
and
yes, yeah.
The second that he was in the pit, I was nervous, and then it all just washed away. And because I got into the music, and when you come to see the show, when you get to sit with me, you'll see it's like playing a rock show, you know. And because we really play. And he was just so lovely, and it meant, I think it meant as much to him as it did to me, and as well to Diane, you know. And that's one of those moments in my life that I'll never forget. And we still talk about it all the time.
I love that so much. Yes. And, you know, Steve and Diane are two of the sweetest human beings ever. I love them too. And yeah, I mean, I love that you're having that experience as well with them. And, you know, and that should show you too how you fit into this community of drummers as well, and the music community as a whole. But
Thank you.
yeah, absolutely. That these drummers are there to see you too and experience your music and your playing. So
yeah, it's a blessing for sure, and I appreciate it. So who knows, you know, who we're gonna get this time around when we start up again. But
yes,
we'll keep the video collection of folks.
Keep it going. That will be an amazing thing to have, for sure.
Yeah.
So we have In the Heights in the theaters, right? So everyone should go and check that out, just like me, get myself to the movie, to the movies.
Yeah.
And then Broadway opening back up, and you said September 14th.
Yep, September 14th we go back. Yeah, very excited about that.
It's amazing.
And In the Heights is also on HBO Max. You know, some people don't want to go out, which is understandable, but they can see it on HBO Max as well. So, and they can buy the soundtrack now. It's available.
Oh, perfect. And I do have HBO Max, but I'm holding off. I might not be able to hold off.
No, you'll love the theater experience. Is, if someone were to ask me what would I would go to the theater, because it's so big and it's so loud. And
yes, it's actually in IMAX near me. So
that's awesome.
Right? That's my plan. I just have to get myself there. Get myself moving out of the house, out of this office.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're busy.
It will happen. Yeah. And then, you know, so those are the things that you have coming up. Is there anything else we should look for you on?
Yeah, I did a record with Raul Midon, which is called The Mirror. I'm very proud of this record. And it's out and available. Raul is a guitar player, singer, songwriter, plays percussion and does this mouth trumpet thing. And he's a hero of mine, you know, and I never in my life thought I'd get to work with him. And somehow it all happened. So I'm on that, playing percussion and drum set for a majority of the album. And I think down the line, you know, once things return to normal, Raul will make his way back here, and we'll get to play together again. I also have a new podcast with Vinny Valentino, guitar player that plays with Steve Smith and plays with a ton of people. A very dear friend of mine for over 20 years. We have a new show called Guitars and Memoirs. And so we interview guitarists, and we talk all things guitar and gear, and geek out a little bit on that stuff. And so we have one every month. So the next one is going to be Raul's. It's a 2-part interview that will be out tomorrow on YouTube. So check that out. And there's a lot of projects coming up for this year and next year. A lot of things. I have another film coming out. It's an animated film called Vivo that I play drums on. That is a Sony animated film, and it's with Gloria Stefan. It's another Lynn movie with Alex Lacamoire doing the orchestrations and writing some of the music. So that, I believe, that will be out on Netflix in July. I don't know what the exact release date is, but it's a beautiful story, and if you get a chance to share it with your kids, it's a movie for adults as well. So just check that out. I mean, it's a very touching movie. So
that's fantastic. I will make sure we link everything too in the bio, in the comments for YouTube, so that in the description, that's the right word, Sarah. In the YouTube description, we will link all of these things so that everyone can check them out for sure, because that's awesome. That's so great. And I'm so happy that you have been, hanging in there through this and working on all these projects and getting these things out there, because like I said, we all really, really appreciate you and cannot wait to see you back in person.
Likewise.
Yeah, sooner than later it will happen.
Well, listen, you are loved by many, many, many people. I'm sure you know that.
Thank you.
You're one of those people that can't do wrong, and you're well respected and admired and loved, and I hope you know how much you mean to so many of us. And it's an honor to be on this show with you. I really appreciate it.
Oh my goodness. Well, I appreciate you right back. And I'm going to give you a giant virtual hug, because I just wish I could squeeze you right now.
Thank you.
But soon enough, for sure. And thank you for your kind words and for your time today.
Thank you,
I just appreciate it very much. And
Likewise.
I will see you soon.
We'll see you soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in today. Join us each Tuesday for new episodes of Sarah Hagen Backstage.